The night is still. A soft breeze moves gently across the Salisbury Plain, carrying with it the scents of grass, earth, and the faint, lingering warmth of a day long gone. The moon hangs low in the sky, a pale guardian watching over the land, casting silver light upon a circle of ancient stones. This is Stonehenge, a monument of mystery, of whispers from the past, standing silently beneath the stars. If you close your eyes, you can almost hear the quiet hum of time. The stones themselves seem to breathe, each one heavy with centuries of stories. They stand in a deliberate pattern, yet their purpose feels both familiar and elusive. Were they placed here for the sun, the moon, the gods, or for something we cannot yet name? The air is cool, and the grass beneath your feet feels soft and damp with dew. As you step closer, the shadows deepen, stretching across the ground like the fingers of forgotten memories. Your gaze follows the great sarcens, towering above you, their surfaces worn and weathered by wind, rain, and the gentle touch of countless hands over thousands of years. At night, Stonehenge feels different. By day, it is a sight of study and wonder. But under the moon, it is a place of dreams. The dark sky is dotted with constellations, each star glimmering faintly, as if in silent conversation with the stones below. You begin to wonder if the builders of this place stood right here, on nights much like this, looking upward, seeking answers in the heavens. The landscape surrounding Stonehenge seems endless. In the distance, gentle hills fade into shadow, their silhouettes soft against the starlit horizon. The plain itself is quiet, save for the distant call of a night bird and the occasional rustle of leaves. There is a sense here, not of isolation, but of connection. It is as if this circle of stones links earth to sky, past to present, the living to those who have long since departed. Some believe Stonehenge was an astronomical calendar, aligned perfectly with the summer solstice sunrise and the winter solstice sunset. Others think it was a sacred site for rituals, perhaps to honor the dead, or to celebrate the turning of the seasons. And yet, despite all our knowledge, much remains unknown. The monument keeps its secrets well. Standing here, you feel the weight of time pressing gently upon you. The stones are not merely rock, they are witnesses. They have seen storms sweep across the plain, have felt the heat of summer and the frost of winter. They have stood here as kings rose and fell, as empires came and went, as people loved, lived, and passed into memory. The night deepens. The moonlight shifts, casting new shadows across the grass. The lintels, the great horizontal stones, rest silently atop the uprights, creating doorways into another world. You can almost imagine stepping through one and finding yourself in a different time, among the people who first raised these mighty pillars. In your mind, you picture them, figures moving in the half-light, their breath forming clouds in the cool air. They carry tools made of stone and wood, their movements slow but purposeful. Every stone is measured, aligned, placed with intention. And as they work, perhaps they sing, their voices rising into the night, blending with the wind, becoming part of the land itself. Somewhere, in the distance, a faint drumbeat begins to echo in your imagination. You see torches flickering, shadows dancing upon the stones. A gathering is taking place, perhaps to mark the solstice, perhaps to honor a spirit, or perhaps for reasons lost entirely to history. The people wear cloaks of fur and leather, their faces painted with ochre. They move with reverence, as if the stones are alive and listening. Back in the present, you stand quietly, breathing in the stillness. The magic of the place is not diminished by time, it is enhanced by it. The more you look, the more you feel that Stonehenge is not simply a relic of the past, but a living presence, continuing to fulfill a purpose we cannot fully understand. Above you, a shooting star streaks across the sky, brief and brilliant, before vanishing into the dark. It feels like a sign, though of what, you cannot say. The stones seem to glow faintly in the moonlight, their ancient surfaces catching the light in unexpected ways. In the silence, your thoughts begin to slow. The rhythm of your breathing matches the quiet heartbeat of the plain. You feel grounded, calm, and deeply aware that you are standing in a place where countless others have stood before, all drawn by the same pull, the same sense of wonder. The night air lingers around you, cool and soft, carrying the scent of damp grass and ancient soil. As you stand in the quiet, the present begins to dissolve, and the veil of time lifts. The stones before you fade into shadow, and in their place, you see an empty plain. No towering sarcens. No lintels balanced high above the earth. Just the wild, open land, as it might have appeared 5,000 years ago. The Salisbury Plain stretches out endlessly under a pale dawn sky. The grass sways gently in the breeze, dotted here and there with low shrubs and wildflowers. In the distance, you hear the faint call of birds waking to the first light. This is a land untouched by the roads, fences, and towns that would come much later. It is vast, untamed, and deeply connected to the cycles of the seasons. You can picture the people who lived here long before Stonehenge took shape. They are small groups of families, living in simple roundhouses made from timber, clay, and thatch. The smell of wood smoke drifts from their hearths. Children run barefoot across the grass, their laughter carrying on the wind. Hunters return from the woods with fresh game, while gatherers collect berries, roots, and herbs from the fields and forests. The people of this time know the land intimately. They understand the turning of the seasons, the movements of the sun and moon, the patterns of the stars above. These are not idle observations, they are vital to survival. When to plant, when to harvest, when to prepare for the lean days of winter, all of it depends on reading the signs written in the sky. It is in this deep awareness of the world that the seeds of Stonehenge are planted, not in the soil, but in the minds of the people. The great stones are still far in the future, yet already, the idea is taking shape, a place where earth and sky meet, where time can be measured and honored, where the living can speak to the spirits of the dead. In your mind's eye, you watch as small rituals are carried out on this plain. Circles are marked on the ground with wooden posts, some aligned to the sunrise and sunset. Fires are lit during the solstices, and the people gather in celebration or in mourning. Their lives are short by our standards, but they are rich with meaning and connection. The land itself plays a role in the birth of the monument. Beneath the grass, chalky white earth lies close to the surface. This chalk will one day serve as the foundation for the stones, but for now, it is simply part of the natural landscape. Streams wind their way through the fields, providing water for people and animals alike. Herds of red deer graze in the distance, their antlers catching the light. As the years pass, the gatherings grow larger. Tribes from other parts of the land begin to travel here for ceremonies. They bring with them stories, goods, and ideas. It is easy to imagine that this plain, so wide, so open, feels like a place chosen by the gods themselves. Slowly, the thought emerges, what if there were a permanent marker here? Something that would stand through all seasons, all years, long after the fires have burned out and the people have gone. At first, the markers are wood. Tall timbers, stripped of bark, are placed upright in the earth, forming a ring. These wooden circles are used for rituals, for watching the sky, for marking the moments when day and night are perfectly balanced. But wood weathers, rots, and falls away. And so, over time, the thought grows bolder, why not use stone? The people of this time do not yet have metal tools. Moving massive stones will be a task beyond imagining. But the vision is there. A circle that will endure for thousands of years, a sacred space that belongs to both the living and the dead. As you watch this vision form, the plain begins to change. The scene in your mind drifts forward in time. The population grows. Skills in farming, building, and astronomy become more refined. The people begin to look beyond their villages, beyond their own lifetimes. They begin to think in terms of generations, of legacies. On some nights, the elders speak of dreams and omens. They talk of a circle that will capture the rising sun on the longest day and the setting sun on the shortest. They speak of spirits who will guide them to the right place, the right shape, the right stones. And the people listen, because in their world, the line between the seen and the unseen is thin. In the dim firelight, you see the spark in their eyes. The plain is no longer just a place to live, it is a place to mark eternity. The air is filled with the scent of burning wood, the crackle of the flames, the low murmur of voices in a language long forgotten. The stars will overhead, and the first steps toward Stonehenge have already begun. Back in the present, the night has deepened again. You stand among the stones, knowing now that this place did not simply appear, it was born from centuries of thought, ritual, and connection to the land. Every stone you see began as an idea, carried through countless seasons, shaped by the dreams of people who lived long before your time. The wind shifts, and the grass whispers softly, as though carrying those voices from the past. You take a deep breath, feeling the layers of history beneath your feet. The wooden circles have long vanished, but their spirit lives on in the great ring of stone that stands before you now. And as the moon drifts slowly across the sky, you feel the pull of the next chapter, the time when the first stones arrive, and the great work truly begins. The wind shifts, and the grass whispers softly, as though carrying those voices from the past. You take a deep breath, feeling the layers of history beneath your feet. The wooden circles have long vanished, but their spirit lives on in the great ring of stone that stands before you now. And as the moon drifts slowly across the sky, you feel the pull of the next chapter, the time when the first stones arrive, and the great work truly begins. Weeks pass. The people grow leaner but stronger. Their hands are calloused, their muscles hardened from the endless pulling and lifting. At times, the weather turns against them. Rain turns the earth to mud, making every step a struggle. Winds howl across the open land, chilling them to the bone. Yet still they move forward, the blue stones inching ever closer to their destination. Finally, the travelers reach the wide, rolling expanse of the Salisbury Plain. To them, it must seem like another world, vast, open, and waiting. Here, they are met by others who have prepared the site. Wooden markers still stand, tracing the outline of the circle that will one day be stone. The ground is cleared, the soil ready. The first bluestone is placed with great ceremony. It is not yet part of the great sarsen structure you know today, it stands alone, a symbol of what is to come. The people gather in a wide ring around it. They bring offerings. Carved wooden figures, animal bones, beads made from shells. These are left at the base of the stone, gifts to the spirits. One by one, more bluestones arrive. The circle begins to take shape, though smaller and less imposing than it will be in later centuries. Each stone is set with care, aligned to points on the horizon where the sun and moon will rise or set on special days of the year. The work is slow, but no one rushes. This is not a project for one season, or even one lifetime. Standing there in your thoughts, you can almost hear the voices of those ancient builders. They speak in low tones, guiding the stone into place. They sing to keep their movement steady. The sound of rope stretching, of wood creaking, of stone settling into the earth, all blend into the rhythm of the plain. The bluestones are not just physical objects. To the people, they are alive. They carry the power of the land they came from, the blessing of the journey they endured, and the purpose of the circle they now help create. When the final stone of this first phase is placed, the people stand back and look upon their work. It is only the beginning, but already, the place feels changed. Centuries from now, these bluestones will be moved, rearranged, and incorporated into a larger, grander design. But here, in this moment, they are enough. They are the first step toward the monument that will stand for thousands of years. Back in the moonlit present, you stand within the great ring of sarsens, knowing now that before these giants were raised, smaller stones stood here first, stones that traveled far, carried by hands long gone. You can almost see them again in their original places, glowing faintly in the moonlight, their journey still fresh in memory. The night is still. The wind brushes past you, as if carrying the echo of that long trek across land and water. You breathe deeply, feeling the weight of history settle around you. The bluestones are quiet now, but their story hums beneath the surface. And in the quiet, you sense what comes next, the arrival of the great Sarsens, stones so massive that their journey will become legend. Stones that will define the shape of Stonehenge for all time. The moon drifts slowly across the sky, its light touching the edges of the stones like a painter's brush. You stand quietly, feeling the stillness settle around you. The bluestones are already in place in your mind's vision, smaller and darker than the giants that will come. But now, the air seems to shift, as though the land is preparing for something greater. Far to the north, in a place called the Marlborough Downs, massive blocks of sandstone lie waiting. These are the Sarsens, great, pale stones, harder than most rock in the region, and weighing up to 25 tons each. They have been here for thousands of years, shaped by nature, resting in the earth. But soon, they will be called to a new life. The people who build Stonehenge know of these stones. They have visited the downs before, walking the ridges and valleys, feeling the smooth, weathered surfaces beneath their hands. To them, the Sarsens are more than stone. They are mountains in miniature, holding the strength of the earth itself. They decide these will be the pillars of their great circle. The task ahead is almost unimaginable. Moving these giants will require hundreds of people. They will use ropes made from twisted plant fibers, wooden sledges, and thick rollers cut from tree trunks. Every stone will need to be dug free from the earth, levered onto a sledge, and dragged mile after mile across uneven land. In the first light of dawn, the work begins. The builders gather around a chosen sarsen, their breaths misting in the cool air. They dig at its base with tools of stone and antler, loosening the soil that holds it. Wooden levers are wedged underneath, the weight creaking and groaning as it shifts for the first time in centuries. When at last the stone tilts free, the people cheer quietly, not with wild shouts, but with deep satisfaction. This is only the first step, but it is a victory. They bind it to the sledge, tightening the ropes until they hum like the strings of an ancient instrument. The journey begins slowly. Dozens of people pull at the front, while others push from behind. Wooden rollers are placed beneath the sledge, and as the stone moves forward, the rollers at the back are lifted and carried to the front again. The sound is deep and steady, wood on wood, rope stretching, the quiet grunt of human effort. The path is not easy. There are streams to cross, hills to climb, and soft patches of ground where the sledge sinks into the earth. At times, the builders must stop to rest, their hands raw and their shoulders aching. They drink from leather skins, share food, and wait for the strength to return to their arms. Sometimes, the weather turns against them. A sudden rain can make the ground slick, the rollers sliding out of place. On those days, the people huddle under cloaks, waiting for the skies to clear, knowing that rushing could mean disaster. But even in the worst moments, the stone moves forward, inch by inch, mile by mile. Nights are spent beside campfires, the great stone resting nearby like a silent companion. The firelight flickers across its surface, revealing grooves and marks left by time. Around the flames, the builders speak softly, telling stories of the monument that will rise, a place where the sun will be trapped in stone and the seasons marked forever. After many days, the first sarsen arrives at the plain. It is met with quiet awe. Even after such a long journey, the stone seems untouched by the miles it has traveled. The people stand before it, imagining how it will rise above them, casting its shadow across the land. Setting it in place is another test of skill and strength. A deep pit is dug into the chalky soil, angled slightly so the stone will tilt into it. Ropes are fixed, and wooden frameworks are built to guide the lift. Slowly, with shouts of guidance and the heave of many hands, the sarsen rises from the horizontal to the vertical. Its base slides into the pit, and the earth is packed tightly around it to hold it steady. When it stands tall, the people step back, their faces lit by both firelight and starlight. This is no ordinary marker, it is the beginning of a new chapter for the circle. Soon, more sarsens will join it, forming not only the outer ring but also the great trilithons, pairs of uprights capped with a horizontal lintel stone. The lintels are shaped with care, their ends carved into joints that will fit snugly atop the uprights, locking them into place. Lifting them is a feat of ingenuity, using earth ramps and wooden frames to raise the massive stones inch by inch until they rest above the pillars. As the weeks turn to months, the plain changes. More sarcens arrive, hauled over long distances, their surfaces catching the sunlight and moonlight alike. The great circle begins to take form, a ring of giants standing in silent watch. In the center, the trilithons rise, their shapes framing the horizon beyond. When the work of this phase is complete, the people hold a great gathering. Tribes come from distant lands, bringing gifts, songs, and food. Fires burn bright against the night sky, and the stones seem to glow in the flickering light. The air is filled with music, drums, rattles, voices weaving together in celebration. In your mind's vision, you see it all, the labor, the dedication, the deep sense of purpose. You realize that Stonehenge was not built in haste, nor by chance. It was shaped by patience, skill, and a belief that the monument would serve not only the living but generations yet unborn. Back in the moonlit present, you stand within the completed sarsen circle, its stones towering above you. The air feels different here, as if the weight of the past has settled gently into the ground. The wind brushes across your face, carrying the echo of distant voices, the steady pull of ropes, the hum of a song that once guided the stones home. And as you breathe in the cool night air, you know the story is far from over. The next chapter will bring rituals, alignments, and the shaping of Stonehenge into a place where earth and sky meet in perfect harmony. The night is calm, the sky a deep velvet scattered with faint starlight. You stand in the heart of Stonehenge, your gaze tracing the lines between the towering stones. The air feels different here, charged with a quiet energy, as if the earth beneath your feet is aware of your presence. You begin to sense that the arrangement of these stones is no accident. In the distance, the horizon glows faintly, not from fire or torchlight, but from the memory of countless sunrises and sunsets. The builders of Stonehenge were not only engineers and laborers, they were sky watchers, readers of celestial patterns, guardians of the turning year. Thousands of years ago, long before these stones stood, people here understood the importance of the sun's journey. They marked the longest day, when light lingers deep into evening, and the shortest day, when the sun's arc is low and brief. These moments were not simply observations of nature. They were woven into the rhythms of survival, telling when to plant, when to harvest, and when to prepare for the long cold. The builders aligned Stonehenge with precision. At the summer solstice, the first light of dawn slips perfectly between the stones, its rays traveling down the avenue toward the center of the monument. At the winter solstice, the setting sun sinks into alignment, bathing the stones in golden light as the shortest day fades into night. You imagine a morning long ago, the day of the summer solstice. The people gather before dawn, wrapped in cloaks against the chill. The horizon is pale with the coming light. In the east, the sun lifts slowly, its first rays slicing through the gap in the stones. Gasps and murmurs ripple through the crowd. The builders have captured the sun, not in chains, but in a frame of stone, forever marking its path. On the winter solstice, the mood is different. The days have grown short, the nights long and cold. The people gather again, this time to watch the sun set, knowing that after this day, the light will slowly begin to return. Fires burn brightly to push back the darkness, and offerings are left at the base of the stones, animal bones, carved figurines, precious beads. Some say these alignments were a calendar, a way to track the passage of time. Others believe they were ceremonial, a means of honoring the cycles of death and rebirth. Perhaps they were both. In a world without clocks or written calendars, the sun and moon were the great keepers of time, and Stonehenge became their temple. But the builders did not stop with the sun. They also watched the moon, noting its phases and the shifting points where it rose and set over the course of many months. Some stones may have been placed to mark these lunar events, creating a complex map of the sky carved into the earth. Standing here, you realize that Stonehenge is more than a circle of stones, it is a meeting place for heaven and earth. Each alignment is a bridge, linking the movements of the stars and planets to the rhythms of human life. The builders understood that the cosmos was not distant, it was part of them, and they were part of it. You picture the gatherings that might have taken place here. At midsummer, people arrive from far and wide, traveling for days or even weeks to reach the circle. They bring food, drink, and music. Children run between the stones, their laughter echoing in the open air. Traders exchange goods, flint blades, pottery, hides. Storytellers recite the myths of the sun's journey, of gods and heroes who chase the light across the sky. At midwinter, the mood is more solemn. People gather close together, sharing warmth against the cold. Rituals are performed to call the sun back, to ensure the coming of spring. Perhaps they sing into the twilight, their voices rising into the crisp night air, mingling with the smoke from the fires. The alignments also connect to the land beyond the stones. To the northeast lies the heel stone, a massive upright that marks the summer solstice sunrise. To the southwest, the avenue stretches away toward the river Avon, linking Stonehenge to other sacred sites. It is as though the monument is part of a greater web, each line of stone and earth leading to another point of meaning. In your mind's vision, you walk this avenue on a clear morning. The grass is wet with dew, and the sun rises ahead of you, framed by the stones. The air smells fresh and cool, the light growing warmer with each step. The builders must have walked this path many times, knowing exactly where the sun would appear, year after year, century after century. Back in the moonlit present, you look up at the dark sky, tracing the faint arc where the sun will travel when morning comes. You realize that the people who built this place could stand here thousands of years ago and see the same sky, the same movements of light and shadow. Time collapses in the quiet. The stones seem to hum softly, not with sound, but with the weight of their purpose. They are not merely monuments to the past, they are instruments for understanding the present and the future. And though their builders are long gone, the alignments remain, as precise now as they were when the first sunrise poured its light between them. The wind moves through the circle, brushing your skin like the faintest touch. You close your eyes and hear the echo of distant voices, chants for the sun's return, laughter in the bright days, solemn words in the dark ones. All of it woven into the same endless cycle, all of it anchored here, in stone. As you open your eyes, the moonlight catches the edges of the great trilithons, casting long shadows across the grass. You know that the next part of the story will lead deeper into the rituals themselves, what the people did here, the offerings they made, the beliefs that shaped every stone they set in place. For now, you breathe in the cool night air, feeling the deep, unbroken rhythm of sun, moon, and stone. The dance continues, as it always has, and as it always will. The moon hangs steady above Stonehenge, its light falling gently across the great stones. You stand within their embrace, and the air feels different here, thicker, as though the place itself holds its breath. It is quiet now, but you can almost hear the echoes of voices from long ago, the murmurs of a gathering deep in ceremony. Thousands of years before this moment, the people who built Stonehenge did not see it simply as a structure. To them, it was alive, a sacred space where the boundaries between the world of the living and the realm of the spirits grew thin. Here, they believed, one could speak to ancestors, honor the forces of nature, and perhaps even reach the gods themselves. In your mind, you see a winter solstice evening long ago. The air is cold, the ground hard with frost. People arrive from miles around, traveling by foot, by river, by paths worn into the earth. They bring food, drink, and bundles wrapped in hide. Offerings for the stones, for the land, for whatever powers might be watching. As the sun sets, torches are lit, their flames flickering in the gathering dark. The stones seem to glow in the firelight, their shadows stretching across the grass like long fingers. The people gather in a great circle around the central trilithons. At the heart of the gathering stand the elders and the ritual leaders, men and women dressed in cloaks of fur and wool, their hair adorned with feathers, shells, or beads. The ceremony begins with silence. The crowd stands still, listening to the wind, the crackle of the torches, the distant calls of night birds. Then, slowly, a drumbeat begins, steady, low, like the heartbeat of the earth. Flutes made of bone join in, their notes winding softly through the air. The people sway gently, moving as one with the rhythm. Offerings are brought forward. Some are simple, grains in woven baskets, carved wooden figures, pottery filled with mead. Others are more precious. Shaped stones, finely made tools, jewelry of bone and amber. These are placed at the base of the stones or buried in the earth nearby, gifts to the unseen powers that guide the seasons and protect the people. Sometimes, animals are sacrificed, their spirits believed to carry messages to the gods. The meat is shared in a great feast afterward, the bones left in the circle as a permanent mark of the offering. The fires burn brighter, casting dancing light on the faces of the people. Laughter and song mix with solemn prayers, the boundary between joy and reverence fading away. In summer, the rituals take a different tone. The days are long, the air warm, the fields green with life. People come not just to honor the sun's height, but to celebrate abundance and connection. Music fills the air, drums, rattles, voices raised in songs that have been sung for generations. Children run between the stones, weaving ribbons and flowers through the grass. Traders set up along the edges of the plain, exchanging goods from distant lands, flint from the north, shells from the coast, hides from the highlands. But even in the midst of celebration, there is an undercurrent of the sacred. At the moment of sunrise on the longest day, the crowd grows still. All eyes turn to the horizon, waiting for the light to spill between the stones. When it does, a cheer rises, and the people lift their hands to the sun in gratitude. Some kneel, pressing their palms to the earth, feeling the warmth return to the land. The rituals are not only for marking the turning of the year. Stonehenge may also have been a place of passage, a site for rites that marked the great moments of life and death. In your mind, you see a procession approaching the stones, carrying a body wrapped in a shroud of woven cloth. The group moves slowly, their faces solemn, the air thick with incense from burning herbs. Within the circle, prayers are spoken, songs are sung, and the spirit of the departed is guided into the next world. The people believe that death is not an end but a crossing into another realm, one that mirrors this one in beauty and abundance. The stones, standing eternal, are the perfect witnesses to this passage, marking the moment when a soul leaves the world of the living. Some believe that healers also worked here, using herbs, chants, and the energy of the stones themselves. Perhaps the builders thought the bluestones from Wales carried special powers, brought from a sacred source. Standing among them, you can imagine someone coming here not only to honor the dead or the turning of the seasons, but to seek a cure, a blessing, a renewal of strength. The ceremonies could last for days. Fires would be kept burning through the night, the flames casting shifting patterns of light across the stone faces. Songs would be repeated until they became part of the air itself, their melodies looping endlessly until sleep and waking blurred together. In those moments, time itself seemed to pause, as if the stones were holding the world in stillness. Back in the present, you stand quietly in the center of the circle, the moonlight taking the place of firelight. The echoes of those long-ago gatherings seem to linger in the air, the hum of drums, the scent of smoke, the warmth of many people gathered close together. You realize that while the rituals themselves may have changed, the sense of awe has never left this place. The grass shifts gently in the breeze, and you feel the weight of centuries pressing softly against you. The people who came here lived in a world very different from yours, yet their hopes, fears, and gratitude to the cycles of nature are as familiar as your own. The stones remind you that these moments, of gathering, of honoring, of marking time, are part of the human story, stretching across millennia. You take one last look at the moonlit stones, their shape so still, so certain. You know the next chapter will carry you deeper into the connections between Stonehenge and the world beyond, other monuments, sacred landscapes, and the pathways that tie them together like threads in a great tapestry. For now, you breathe deeply, letting the quiet of the night sink into you, the way it must have done for every soul who stood here in the heart of the circle. You take one last look at the moonlit stones, their shape so still, so certain. You know the next chapter will carry you deeper into the connections between Stonehenge and the world beyond, other monuments, sacred landscapes, and the pathways that tie them together like threads in a great tapestry. For now, you breathe deeply, letting the quiet of the night sink into you, the way it must have done for every soul who stood here in the heart of the circle. Turning the space within into something separate from the world outside, a sacred interior beneath the open sky. If you close your eyes and listen in the darkness, you might hear the faint whisper of wind threading through the gaps in the stones. Perhaps you'd notice how sound carries differently here, how a voice can echo in soft and unexpected ways. In ancient times, these acoustic qualities could have amplified the voices of priests or shamans during rituals, making them seem louder, more commanding, or even otherworldly. In the flickering light of a fire, shadows from the giants would dance across the ground, moving like living beings. The idea of the stones as giants has more than one meaning. Yes, they are physically enormous, but they also feel ancient in a way that outlasts human memory. They are survivors of a time before written words, before kings and kingdoms. Each stone has stood through wars, plagues, harvests, and celebrations. They have watched as empires rose and fell. They have endured storms and droughts, snow and sunlight, always returning to stand in the same place as the seasons turned again. Some night visitors to Stonehenge report feeling small here, not in a way that is frightening, but in a way that is humbling. The giants do not threaten. They simply are. They stand as they have always stood, watching the moon rise, the stars turn, and the dawn creep slowly across the plain. You could stand here for hours and feel time stretch thin, as if you were no longer entirely in the present day. Perhaps that is why the myths persist. Facts may tell us that people transported and raised these stones with ingenuity and muscle, but the feeling one gets beneath them belongs to another realm. It belongs to a time when giants were real, when magic could move mountains, and when the night sky was as much a map of mysteries as a canopy of stars. When dawn finally comes, the circle of giants will greet the first light just as they have for thousands of years. But tonight, under the deep velvet sky, they are not merely stones. They are the tall, silent keepers of secrets, standing between the world of men and the eternal unknown. The moon hangs low over the plain tonight, a silver coin in a deep blue sky. Its pale light touches the ancient stones of Stonehenge, revealing every curve and shadow. The grass is damp with dew, and the air is cool, carrying the faint rustle of the wind across the Salisbury Plain. In the quiet, it feels as if time itself has slowed, as though the world is pausing to listen to the secrets the stones might whisper. In the darkness, we imagine the people who once stood here thousands of years ago. They were not simply builders. They were watchers of the skies, early astronomers, perhaps the first in this land. Without telescopes, without compasses, they used their eyes, their instincts, and the patterns of nature to mark the passage of time. The monument they created was not just a circle of stones, but a vast calendar of light and shadow. When the summer solstice came, the sun would rise in perfect alignment with the heel stone, casting its first beam directly into the heart of the circle. The people would gather in awe, knowing that this was the turning point of the year, the moment when days would begin to grow shorter once again. In winter, the same circle could be read in reverse, marking the return of the light. These alignments were no accident. They were the result of generations of careful observation. Imagine the quiet dedication it took, sitting in the same place year after year, noting where the sun rose and where it set, waiting for the patterns to repeat. They learned the language of the sky, recording it in the positions of the stones so it would never be forgotten. But it wasn't only the sun that drew their attention. The moon, too, played a role in this ancient observatory. Some of the stones may have been aligned with the moon's rising and setting points, especially during rare lunar events that occur only once every 18.5 years. Such cycles were long enough that they might pass through 2 or 3 generations before being seen again. Yet somehow, this knowledge endured. The elders taught the young, and the young grew into the keepers of the sky. Around the fire at night, one might hear the elders explaining the meaning of the stars. The constellations were not just dots of light to them, they were stories, guides for the seasons, markers for when to plant crops or prepare for the cold. In the flickering firelight, they might gesture toward the heavens, tracing lines between stars, telling tales of gods, animals, and great hunts that played out in the night sky. Stonehenge itself was their great book, written in stone instead of ink. Each stone was like a page, its position recording a specific point in the celestial cycle. Just as modern astronomers have observatories to study the cosmos, these ancient people had their stone circle. And like our observatories today, it connected them to something far beyond themselves, a vast, unchanging order in the universe. Standing here in the present, it's easy to forget how dark the world once was. Without city lights, the night sky would have been unimaginably bright with stars. The Milky Way would have stretched overhead like a river of light, and shooting stars would have left brief, glowing trails. The ancient astronomers of Stonehenge saw the sky in its purest form. To them, the movements of the sun, moon, and stars must have seemed like the heartbeat of the world itself. We can almost see them now, wrapped in fur cloaks against the chill, their breath steaming in the air, watching the horizon with patient eyes. Some might be marking the position of the moon with a carved stick in the earth, while others tend the fire. And when the moment comes, when the sun or moon rises exactly where it should, they nod in quiet satisfaction, knowing they have once again measured the pulse of time. The stones have kept these alignments for thousands of years, long after their builders were gone. Even now, modern archaeologists and astronomers study them, confirming what those ancient skywatchers knew: the universe follows a pattern, and if you are patient enough, you can learn its rhythm. Tonight, as the moonlight glides slowly across the great sarsens, we are reminded that we are not so different from those who came before. We still look up at the same sky, still marvel at its beauty, still try to understand its mysteries. The astronomers of Stonehenge may be gone, but their work remains, etched into the very shape of the land, quietly marking the dance of the heavens for all who care to see. And so we listen, in the deep stillness of night, to the silent language of the stones, a language written not in words, but in light, shadow, and the eternal turning of the sky. The chill of night had settled over the Salisbury Plain, wrapping the land in a cloak of stillness. Above, the stars gleamed in endless patterns, casting their silver light upon the ancient stones of Stonehenge. In the distance, the quiet rustle of grass was the only sound, save for the slow, measured footsteps of the figures approaching the monument. Cloaked in furs and woven garments, they moved with purpose, as if each step was part of a dance that had been performed countless times before. These were the keepers of the old ways, the guardians of rituals passed down through generations. Their destination was the inner circle of Stonehenge, a place they believed to be the bridge between the world of the living and the realm of the spirits. Each stone, each gap between the monoliths, was a gateway for celestial energy. On this night, when the moon was high and the air was sharp with winter's breath, they gathered to call upon the powers of earth and sky. The leader, an elder draped in a mantle of white wool, carried a staff carved with spirals and sunbursts. Around his neck hung polished stones and bone charms that rattled softly with each step. He paused before the largest trilithon, closing his eyes as his fingers touched the weathered surface. The cold stone seemed to hum faintly beneath his palm, as though it recognized the presence of those who had come to honor it. One by one, the others formed a circle around him. Their faces were illuminated by the flickering glow of torches planted firmly in the ground. The firelight danced across the stones, casting long shadows that stretched like spirits into the darkness. Soft chants began to rise, the low hum of many voices merging into a single note that resonated deep in the chest. The air seemed to thicken, heavy with unseen forces. At the heart of the ritual was the offering, a carefully prepared arrangement of grains, honey, and carved wooden tokens placed upon a flat stone slab. To the people of this land, these gifts were a way of giving back to the earth, ensuring the cycles of life continued without disruption. Every grain of barley, every drop of honey, was a symbol of gratitude. The elder raised his staff to the sky, and the chanting grew louder. He spoke words in an ancient tongue, syllables that rolled like the rhythm of waves. To those gathered, these words were more than sound, they were a thread weaving them into the great tapestry of the universe. The flames flared higher, and for a moment, it felt as if the wind had ceased entirely, the world holding its breath. Above them, the stars seemed brighter, their alignment echoing the shape of the stones below. The moonlight streamed through the gaps between the trilithons, creating paths of silver across the ground. The people believed this was no accident, the builders of Stonehenge had crafted the monument as a mirror to the heavens. By standing within it, one stood within the design of the cosmos itself. As the ritual reached its height, drums began to beat, slow and steady at first, then faster, matching the rhythm of heartbeats. The sound reverberated through the stones, through the soil, through the bodies of those gathered. Some swayed gently, eyes closed, as if they were drifting into a trance. Others whispered prayers, speaking to ancestors they could not see but felt all around them. Then came the moment of release. The elder lowered his staff, and the chanting ceased. A deep silence filled the circle, more profound than the quiet of the plain. In that silence, each person bowed their head, letting the energy they had called upon settle within them. They believed it would guide their lives until the next gathering, keeping them aligned with the will of the stars and the blessings of the earth. When the ritual ended, the torches were extinguished one by one, their smoke curling into the cold air. The people moved away from the stones, their steps softer now, as though they were reluctant to disturb the power they had summoned. The monument stood as it always had, silent and watchful, but in the hearts of those who had been there, it was alive, a living presence, a witness to their devotion. Far beyond the plain, dawn was still hours away. But within the sacred circle of Stonehenge, the night had been transformed. The stars above seemed to linger, as if unwilling to leave the company of the ancient stones and the people who still, after thousands of years, sought their secrets beneath the endless sky. The wind was gentle tonight, whispering across the ancient plain as the moon cast a silvery light upon the dark silhouettes of Stonehenge. Here, in the quiet of night, we find ourselves drifting back in time, imagining a scene thousands of years ago, when the cold breath of winter wrapped the land, and the people gathered for one of their most sacred moments of the year, the midwinter solstice. The solstices were not just dates in an ancient calendar, they were living events, woven deeply into the rhythm of life. For the builders and worshippers of Stonehenge, the winter solstice held a profound significance. It was the longest night, the turning point after which the days would slowly lengthen again. A moment of hope, a cosmic promise that light and warmth would return. In the cold, dark world of Neolithic Britain, this was not just symbolic, it was survival. When we stand within the stones today, we can still sense that sacred alignment. The grand trilithons rise like silent sentinels, and the sarsen stones stretch in a precise arc. Archaeologists have discovered that the arrangement is not random at all. Stonehenge aligns with the setting sun on the winter solstice. The builders created a perfect frame for that celestial moment. As the sun dipped low on the horizon, its final rays would blaze directly between the stones, striking the heart of the monument. Now, let us imagine what it was like thousands of years ago. Snow dusts the frozen ground. Families, wrapped in furs, gather from miles around. Fires crackle and glow in the distance, their smoke curling into the icy sky. The air hums with anticipation. People share food, roasted meats, nuts, and dried berries. They drink from horn cups, their warm breath mingling with the steam rising into the winter air. And then, the moment comes. All eyes turn to the western sky. The low sun is a deep, glowing orange, casting long shadows over the land. As it sinks toward the horizon, it lines up perfectly with the tallest stones. For a few heartbeats, the entire monument is bathed in golden light. The people cheer, they sing, they beat drums carved from hollowed wood. The old year is dying, but the sun's path has turned, life will return. For these ancient people, this was more than ceremony. It was a reaffirmation of the cosmic order. They believed that by honoring the sun at this critical moment, they were helping ensure the balance of the world. Perhaps they thought that their songs and offerings gave the sun strength to rise higher in the sky in the days ahead. The winter solstice at Stonehenge may also have been a time of remembrance. The presence of nearby burial mounds and human remains suggests that ancestors played a role in these rituals. The dead may have been honored during the longest night, their spirits welcomed back into the circle of the living, sharing in the feast before returning to the unseen world. The fires lit in the darkness may have been not only for warmth but also as guiding beacons for those souls. In the stillness of night, long after the sun had vanished, the celebrations likely continued. Torches cast flickering light on the stones, making them seem to move and breathe. Shadows danced in strange patterns, as if the stones themselves were joining in the ritual. Around the fires, stories would be told, of creation, of gods and heroes, of the first builders who placed these stones here by strength and will. These tales, passed from one generation to the next, kept the purpose of the solstice alive even in the hardest winters. What makes this even more astonishing is the precision of the alignment. Without modern tools, without steel or lasers or GPS, these ancient people built a monument that could measure the heavens. This shows us not only their skill in engineering but also their deep understanding of the natural world. They knew the cycles of the sun, the rhythm of the seasons, and the delicate balance of light and darkness. Even today, the winter solstice draws people to Stonehenge. On that day, thousands gather before sunrise or sunset, waiting for that magical alignment. Some come to celebrate in the old ways, dressed in robes and carrying drums. Others come quietly, simply to witness the timeless beauty of the moment. And as the sun falls between the stones, casting that same golden light as it did 4,000 years ago, there is a hush, a moment when past and present seem to merge. Standing there in the night, we can feel what they must have felt, awe, hope, and a connection to something vast and eternal. The cold air stings our cheeks, the ground is hard beneath our feet, and above us, the stars shimmer like ancient witnesses. Stonehenge is not just a pile of stones. It is a bridge between people and the cosmos, between the seen and the unseen, between the longest night and the promise of returning light. And as the night deepens, and the last embers of the fires fade, the people drift back to their homes. But they carry with them the warmth of the feast, the glow of the sun's farewell, and the certainty that the cycle will begin again. In this way, Stonehenge kept not only time but also the human spirit, guiding both through the long winters and into the rebirth of spring. This is the power of the midwinter solstice, the still point in the turning year, where silence and celebration meet, and where the stones hold the memory of countless winters gone by. As we drift deeper into the mystery of Stonehenge, let the quiet of the night settle around you like a soft blanket. Imagine the monument under the silver glow of the moon, the stones standing as silent guardians, their shadows stretching across the earth like dark fingers reaching into the past. Tonight, we will walk among them in thought, exploring the ancient belief that these stones are more than just rock and earth, they are instruments in a cosmic symphony. Stonehenge, for centuries, has drawn the curious gaze of astronomers, historians, and dreamers alike. When you stand in the center, surrounded by those weathered megaliths, you cannot help but feel as though they were placed with purpose, aligned not only with the land, but with the heavens. Long before the hum of modern cities, the people who built Stonehenge lived in a world ruled by cycles, the waxing and waning of the moon, the slow crawl of the sun across the seasons, and the shifting constellations overhead. These patterns governed planting, harvesting, and the rhythm of life itself. It is in this context that Stonehenge begins to reveal itself as a vast and precise calendar. The most famous alignment is with the summer solstice sunrise. On that day, the first light of dawn shines directly through the heel stone, framing the sun in the heart of the monument. To the builders, this was no accident, it was an annual moment of celebration, a sign that the long days had arrived, and the sun would bless the land with warmth and growth. Equally fascinating is the winter solstice sunset, when the sun sinks perfectly between certain stones, marking the turning point of the year when light begins its slow return. But it is not only the sun that holds sway here. Some researchers believe the arrangement of the stones also reflects lunar cycles. The moon, mysterious and ever-changing, may have played as significant a role in ancient belief as the sun itself. Its phases could have guided hunting, gathering, and rituals tied to the tides and seasons. There is even speculation that the builders tracked the 18.6-year lunar cycle, a feat of remarkable observation and record-keeping for a people without written language. Picture this: a cold night thousands of years ago, the builders' descendants gathered within the circle. Above them, the constellations turned slowly, the Milky Way stretching across the sky like a river of light. The stones, casting long shadows in the moonlight, may have served as markers for the rising and setting of certain stars. Could Stonehenge have also been a map of the sky, a place where Earth and cosmos merged? Some believe that Orion's belt, the Pleiades, and other notable star clusters held symbolic meaning, perhaps tied to myths that have since been lost to time. The notion of Stonehenge as an astronomical tool does not make it purely scientific, it would have been deeply spiritual. Aligning the monument with celestial events was a way of harmonizing human life with the divine order of the universe. When the sun rose in its perfect slot or the moon reached a particular height, the people standing here may have felt they were participating in a cosmic dance, reaffirming their connection to forces greater than themselves. Archaeological evidence supports the idea of large gatherings during these celestial events. Animal bones found nearby suggest great feasts took place at certain times of the year, possibly coinciding with solstices. Imagine the fires flickering, the air filled with the scent of roasting meat, voices rising in song as the community marked the passing of another cycle. The stones stood in silent witness, as they still do, to the joy and reverence of those moments. Some modern astronomers and historians caution against seeing Stonehenge solely as an observatory. They remind us that while alignments are undeniable, their purpose may have been as much ceremonial as practical. Perhaps it was not about predicting the exact date of planting or hunting, but rather about creating a sacred stage upon which life, death, and renewal were celebrated in harmony with the heavens. Tonight, as we imagine ourselves among these ancient people, we can feel the same wonder they might have felt. The cool air brushes against our skin, carrying whispers from the distant past. The moon hangs low, its pale light washing over the stones, and somewhere deep in the earth beneath our feet, the memories of countless solstice gatherings rest. The alignments of Stonehenge are more than measurements of time, they are connections between sky and soil, between the fleeting lives of humans and the eternal cycles of the universe. They remind us that we, too, are part of a larger pattern, and that by looking to the stars, we find not only guidance but meaning. The night was still, yet in the quiet darkness, the stones seemed to hum with an invisible energy. It was not the sound of the wind, nor the distant rustle of grass, but something deeper, almost hidden beneath the threshold of ordinary hearing. Many visitors have remarked on this strange phenomenon, as though the great monoliths of Stonehenge remember the voices that once echoed between them. Sound was more than mere communication for the ancient builders, it was a bridge between worlds. To understand Stonehenge is to understand how the ancients believed sound could shape reality, heal the body, and open the way to the divine. Some archaeologists suggest that the site was not only an astronomical observatory or a burial ground, but also a kind of instrument, an immense, stone-bound chamber of resonance, tuned by its very shape and materials. Imagine the Neolithic people gathered here under the summer sun, or the pale winter moon. Perhaps drums beat steadily, echoing in the chest and in the bones. Perhaps voices chanted in unison, rising and falling like the tides. The sound would bounce between the great sarsens, swirling in patterns invisible but deeply felt. Within such vibrations, the air itself seemed to become alive, carrying the power of prayer to whatever gods listened beyond the sky. In the modern world, experiments have been done to test these ancient whispers. Acoustic researchers have built scale models of Stonehenge, placing speakers within the miniature circle and measuring how sound behaves. They found that certain tones become amplified, lingering longer than in open space. A single drumbeat could carry farther, and a chant could wrap around the listener like a soft, invisible cloak. It was a natural amplifier, created not by accident, but by intention. One can imagine the effect during a ritual. The slow, rhythmic beat of a skin drum. The low, drawn-out notes of bone flutes. The voices of priests or priestesses calling upon the spirits of the sun, the moon, and the earth. As the sound built, it might have seemed as though the stones themselves were singing back, their vibrations joining with human voices in a great chorus of earth and sky. Even the materials chosen for Stonehenge may have been selected for their acoustic properties. The blue stones, brought from the Preseli Hills of Wales, are known to produce ringing tones when struck, almost like metal bells. In their homeland, such stones were called singing stones, and were sometimes used to make sound during rituals. If struck with another stone, they give off a clear, resonant note that can travel through the air. The builders may have known this and placed them in the circle for both symbolic and sonic reasons. The sacredness of sound is not unique to Stonehenge. Across the world, ancient cultures built spaces designed to carry voices to the heavens. The Hypogeum in Malta, for example, has underground chambers where a spoken word can echo for many seconds, producing a trance-like effect on listeners. Native American structures, too, sometimes align with natural echoes. In all these cases, sound was more than noise, it was a force, invisible but powerful, capable of connecting the living with the unseen. For the people of Stonehenge, sound was also tied to the cycles of nature. Certain rituals might have been performed at sunrise on the solstices, when the sky was painted in gold and the first light of day streamed through the entrance of the monument. The voices and instruments would rise with the light, as though welcoming the sun back from its long journey. On winter nights, the chants might be slower, deeper, honoring the sleeping earth and calling for her return to abundance. In the stillness of modern nights, when tourists have gone and the wind is soft, it is possible to stand among the stones and almost feel those ancient vibrations again. The mind quiets, and in that hush, the imagination fills the silence with distant drumming, soft chanting, and the clear, bell-like ring of bluestones. It is as though time folds, and for a heartbeat, you are not in the 21st century at all, but standing shoulder to shoulder with those who once danced and sang here under the same moon. Some researchers believe that these rituals were not merely symbolic, they may have been intended to heal. Sound therapy, as we call it today, was practiced in many ancient cultures. The steady beat of a drum can alter brainwave patterns, bringing the mind into a meditative state. Certain tones and chants can ease pain or encourage the body's natural rhythms. It is tempting to imagine that Stonehenge served as a vast healing temple, where sound, sunlight, and stone worked together to restore balance to the human spirit. And perhaps there was something even deeper, something that modern science has yet to explain. If the stones hold memories, as some legends say, then maybe they remember the voices of those who stood here thousands of years ago. Maybe when the wind passes just right, it stirs those memories, and the stones hum softly in response, carrying their secret music into the night. The sacred sound of Stonehenge is a reminder that history is not only something we see, it is something we can hear, if we listen closely enough. And in that listening, we might just hear the voices of the past calling us to remember who we are, and where we have come from. The night is still, the sky a deep canvas of indigo and silver. The moon hangs high above Stonehenge, bathing the ancient stones in a soft glow that makes them seem alive, as though they are listening, remembering. In this quiet moment, you feel as if you have stepped into the space between time, where the present and the distant past meet. The air feels charged, not with the noise of the modern world, but with the weight of countless stories. Tonight, we speak not only of history but of legend, the whispered tales that swirl around Stonehenge like mist. For centuries, people have tried to explain the unexplainable. How did these stones come to stand here, arranged so precisely? What meaning did they hold for the people who raised them? Archaeologists may speak of tools, measurements, and ancient engineering, but the human heart also longs for stories, for magic, for mystery. And so, over the ages, myths have taken root, passed down by voice and memory, embroidered with wonder. One of the most enduring tales is that of Merlin, the great wizard of Arthurian legend. The story says that the stones were brought here from a faraway land, a place called the Giants' Dance in Ireland. There, they stood in a perfect circle, imbued with mystical powers. King Aurelius Ambrosius, wishing to create a monument for his fallen warriors, sought the stones, but no one could move them. Only Merlin, with his deep knowledge of magic, could accomplish the task. With spells and enchantments, he brought the stones across the sea, placing them exactly as we see them now. The myth tells us that the stones themselves hold healing powers, able to cure sickness for those who stand among them. Another legend whispers of giants, beings of immense strength who roamed the earth before humankind. Some say the stones were once part of their playground, a circle where they danced under the moonlight. When the giants vanished from the earth, their stones remained, too heavy for ordinary people to move, and so they became a wonder of the world. There is also the tale of the Devil's Stone. One version tells of the devil himself buying the stones from a cunning old woman in Ireland. He tricked her into selling them for a small sum, then transported them to Salisbury Plain. But as he worked, a monk spied on him. The devil threw one stone at the monk in anger, and it struck him on the heel. That stone, it is said, still bears the imprint of the monk's heel to this day. These are not tales to be tested in laboratories or measured in numbers. They belong to the part of us that still dreams when we close our eyes, the part that believes there are mysteries too vast for science alone. In the stillness of night, it's easy to imagine the people of ancient times, sitting around fires, telling these stories to children whose eyes grew wide with wonder. Perhaps they, too, felt the power of the stones. The way they seem to hum when the wind slips between them. Perhaps they believed that each stone was a guardian, watching over the land. Even in more recent centuries, travelers and poets have been drawn to Stonehenge to weave their own imaginings. William Blake, with his mystical visions, once wrote of ancient Druids and the spirit of Albion, England's soul, lingering among the stones. Others spoke of fairy circles, of gateways to other realms, of the dead who walk on Midsummer's Eve. The beauty of these legends is not in whether they are true in the factual sense, but in how they connect us to the people who came before. They show us that humans have always been storytellers, always searching for meaning beyond the material world. As you stand in the shadow of the stones, you can almost hear it, the faintest murmur, like voices carried on the wind. Perhaps it is only the breeze playing tricks. Or perhaps it is the echo of all those stories, layered one upon another through the centuries, lingering here in the night air. And so, as the moonlight washes over the ancient circle, you find yourself smiling softly. The legends may not answer the archaeologist's questions, but they give the heart something just as precious, the gift of wonder. For in the quiet of Stonehenge at night, it is easy to believe that anything might be possible. The night was crisp, the kind of air that seemed to sharpen the edges of every sound. As I walked toward the monument, the grass underfoot glistened faintly, each blade kissed by the evening's dew. Ahead, the great heel stone stood in its solitary vigil, leaning ever so slightly, yet steadfast in its place as it had for thousands of years. Moonlight spilled down over its rough surface, tracing the grooves and weathered scars, making them gleam like silver threads in the darkness. I paused a few steps away, letting my gaze rest on its massive shape. This single stone, placed so deliberately outside the main circle, has stirred countless theories. Was it a marker for the midsummer sunrise? A sentinel to guide processions? Or perhaps a silent keeper of the lunar cycles, aligning not just with the sun, but with the moon's slow, patient dance across the sky? Tonight, under the cold glow of the full moon, it seemed as though the heel stone itself was answering. Though not in words, but in the language of stillness and shadow. The wind swept softly over the Salisbury Plain, and I imagined what it must have been like for the builders of Stonehenge to stand here, watching the moon climb higher. Without the glow of modern lights, the night sky must have been a vast, living canvas. Stars burned brighter, and the moon's reflection on the chalky earth might have seemed almost divine. In that ancient darkness, the heel stone could have been both a waypoint and a witness, a physical reminder that time could be measured not only in days and seasons, but in the grand cycles of the cosmos. I began to circle slowly, noting how the stone's face caught the light differently from each angle. From one side, the surface was almost smooth, like the worn handle of a tool touched by countless hands. From another, the texture was rough and pitted, casting small pockets of shadow where the moonlight could not reach. Perhaps these were not random marks, but purposeful etchings from the tools of the Neolithic craftsman. Even the tilt of the stone, slight but noticeable, could have been intentional, a subtle adjustment to catch the exact light of a particular moment in the lunar year. Some archaeologists suggest that the heel stone once stood perfectly upright, only leaning over time as the ground beneath it shifted. Others believe it may have always been angled, designed to direct the eye along a particular celestial path. Standing before it, I felt no need to decide between these theories. Instead, I let the mystery remain intact, like a quiet note in a song that lingers long after the final chord fades. I imagined a night thousands of years ago when a gathering took place here. Fires flickered in the distance, and the murmur of voices carried over the plain. A procession approached from the east, moving in deliberate rhythm, guided by the light of a full moon much like the one overhead now. As they reached the heel stone, perhaps they paused, offering gestures or words of reverence before continuing toward the main circle. This moment could have been part of a festival, a ritual, or even a funeral rite, its exact purpose lost to time, but its gravity still felt. The heel stone, in that vision, was more than a piece of rock. It was a threshold. Passing it was like crossing from the ordinary world into the sacred space of Stonehenge. Even in our present day, standing beside it feels like stepping into a story that stretches far beyond one lifetime. You can feel the pull of the past here, as if the stone holds not only the memory of those who placed it, but of every full moon and sunrise it has ever witnessed. Above, the moon drifted toward its zenith, its light softening into a pale haze as a thin mist began to form on the plain. The heel stone's shadow grew faint, but its presence remained unshaken. I rested a hand on its cool surface, feeling the texture beneath my fingertips. A reminder that this was no abstract symbol, but a real, tangible creation of human hands. Yet, paradoxically, it was also a bridge to something greater, the sky, the stars, the turning of the seasons. In that quiet moment, I thought of how many generations had stood here, each with their own reasons for looking to the heavens. Farmers marking the time for planting. Leaders seeking omens. Families gathering to honor their ancestors. And, perhaps, solitary wanderers like me, simply marveling at the beauty of the night and the steadfastness of stone. The heel stone, bathed in moonlight, did not speak in words, but it didn't need to. Its message was clear in its enduring silence: that time is vast, and we are but travelers through it. The stone remains, as it always has, patient and unhurried, a silent witness to all the nights and all the moons that have ever been. As I stepped back, the mist thickened, blurring the horizon and softening the monument's edges. The heel stone stood alone in its quiet vigil, guarding its secrets as it had for millennia. I turned toward the main circle, ready to continue my walk, but I knew I would always remember this moonlit moment, the night when the heel stone seemed to breathe with the rhythm of the earth and sky. The night hung low over the Salisbury Plain, its deep blue sky scattered with cold, shimmering stars. In the stillness, the ancient stones of Stonehenge seemed almost to hum, as though they held within them the rhythm of time itself. Tonight, our gentle exploration takes us into one of the most fascinating theories surrounding this enigmatic monument, the idea that Stonehenge was more than a sacred space, more than a burial site or a gathering ground, but also a vast and intricate calendar carved in stone. For centuries, the notion that Stonehenge was aligned with celestial events has intrigued archaeologists, astronomers, and dreamers alike. As you sit back and let the calmness of the evening settle in, imagine yourself standing here thousands of years ago, the wind rustling the grass, the cold air sharp with the scent of earth. The people who built this place looked to the heavens as their guide, marking time not by clocks and calendars, but by the steady movement of the sun, the moon, and the stars. The stones were placed with deliberate precision. The great trilithons in the center, the sarsen circle surrounding them, the outer bank and ditch, all these features appear to interact with light and shadow at key moments of the year. The most famous of these alignments is the summer solstice sunrise, when the first golden ray breaks over the horizon, passing directly above the heel stone and pouring its light into the heart of the monument. But the calendar of Stonehenge, if that is truly what it was not limited to this one event. Some scholars believe that the monument could track both the solar year and the lunar cycle. The arrangement of stones and smaller features, like the Aubrey holes, a ring of 56 pits just within the bank, might have been used to count the days, months, and years. By moving markers around these pits, the ancient builders may have been able to predict eclipses and mark the passage of seasons. It is a theory that transforms the monument from a passive structure into an active instrument, a prehistoric observatory, silent yet precise. In the darkness, the moon rises slowly over the plain. Imagine its pale light touching the ancient stone surfaces, catching on their rough edges. The builders would have seen the moon's cycles as a kind of cosmic heartbeat, waxing and waning in harmony with tides, harvests, and perhaps even human rituals. Certain stones are thought to align with the moon at extreme points in its orbit, events that happen only every 18.6 years, a sign of the long-term thinking and deep sky-watching embedded in this culture. But why go to such immense effort to create a calendar of stone? The answer lies in the rhythms of survival. Knowing the precise moment to plant crops, to expect the return of migratory animals, or to prepare for winter's arrival could mean the difference between abundance and scarcity. In a time before written records, the stones themselves became the record. A permanent, unchanging guide that could be read by those who understood its design. As we think of this, it's easy to see how the monument would take on sacred significance. Each sunrise and moonrise, each shadow and beam of light, would not only carry practical meaning but also spiritual weight. It was as though the builders had pulled the heavens down to earth, shaping them into a circle of stone so that the cycles of the cosmos could be felt in the bones of the land. Some researchers even suggest that Stonehenge's design may encode a 365.25-day solar year, remarkably close to our modern calendar. If true, this would mean that the people of prehistoric Britain were not only observing the sky but also calculating with extraordinary accuracy. And they did all this without metal tools, without written numbers, relying instead on an inherited knowledge passed down through generations, preserved in oral traditions, songs, and seasonal rituals. As the hours drift toward midnight, the stars above seem to wheel slowly, almost imperceptibly, across the sky. The same stars the builders watched still shine today, unchanged in their patient journeys. Standing here, it's easy to feel the presence of time as something vast and cyclical rather than linear, a turning wheel, not a straight path. And perhaps that was the real secret of Stonehenge's calendar. It was not simply about measuring time, but about living within its cycles, about harmonizing human life with the eternal patterns of the universe. The monument did not just mark dates, it told a story of renewal, of endings that were also beginnings, of a world in which the heavens and the earth were forever entwined. As the wind sighs through the grass and the stones cast their long, patient shadows, the night whispers its ancient truth, that to know the sky is to know the heart of time itself. And here, in this circle of silent watchers, that truth has been waiting for thousands of years. The air is still, the kind of stillness that feels almost sacred, as if the world itself is holding its breath. The grassy plain around Stonehenge lies in deep shadow, the ancient stones standing like silent guardians under the velvet sweep of the night sky. Above, the moon is full, casting its pale silver glow across the landscape, and the stars glitter like scattered jewels. It is in this quiet, timeless setting that we imagine the Druids, those mysterious figures often linked in legend to this place, moving through their sacred rituals. The Druids were the spiritual leaders, philosophers, and lore-keepers of the ancient Celtic world. While there is debate among historians about whether Stonehenge was directly connected to them, folklore and romantic imagery have long tied the two together. Tonight, in this gentle journey of the imagination, we let their presence walk softly among us, wrapped in cloaks of wool and leather, faces partly hidden by the hoods that shield them from the cool night air. A circle of robed figures gathers within the stones. Their torches flicker, sending warm light dancing across the massive sarcens. Shadows stretch and sway, as if the stones themselves are alive and moving in time with the ceremony. The voices of the Druids rise in soft chanting, a rhythmic hum that blends with the whisper of the night wind. It is a sound that seems to bypass the mind and speak directly to the heart, low, steady, ancient. They carry with them bundles of herbs, sage, rosemary, and sweet-smelling meadowsweet, plants sacred in their traditions. Some are burned in small bronze bowls, sending up tendrils of fragrant smoke that curl and twist into the moonlit air. Others are scattered on the ground as offerings to the spirits of the earth. These scents mingle with the crisp night air, creating an atmosphere that feels both grounded and otherworldly. In the center of the gathering stands a stone altar, whether real or imagined, it feels perfectly placed, a flat slab upon which rests a carved wooden bowl. Inside is water drawn from a sacred spring miles away. The moonlight catches its surface, turning it to liquid silver. A Druid priest raises the bowl high, speaking words in a language long lost to time. Though we cannot understand them, their cadence carries the weight of meaning. It is a blessing for the land, for the turning of the seasons, for the people who live under this vast, eternal sky. There is no sense of haste. Everything unfolds with patient, deliberate grace. A drum begins to beat, its deep, slow rhythm echoing the pulse of the earth. Around the circle, feet move in time, tracing steps that have perhaps been danced for generations. The sound of the drum joins the soft rustle of robes, the crackle of the torches, the murmured voices. The night becomes a symphony of subtle sounds, all woven together by the thread of ritual. Above them, the stars form familiar patterns. The Druids were skilled in reading the sky, and perhaps this gathering is not only a spiritual one but also an astronomical observance. A particular star rising over a certain stone may mark a significant time in their calendar, the turning toward winter, the promise of the returning sun, or the honoring of ancestors. The heavens are their clock, their map, and their temple roof. The ceremony builds to a gentle climax. A hush falls over the group. The priest dips an evergreen branch into the sacred water, sprinkling droplets over the stones and the people gathered. Each drop catches the moonlight before it falls, like tiny falling stars. A blessing is given, and the group bows their heads in unison. For a moment, all is perfectly still, only the soft night sounds of the Wiltshire plain remain. Then, slowly, the torches are lowered. The chanting fades, replaced by the quiet murmur of voices speaking in low tones. The Druids begin to depart, their figures becoming shadowy outlines against the horizon. They leave as quietly as they came, the smoke from the herbs lingering in the air, the stones once again standing in solitude. And yet, something remains. It is not something you can touch or see, it is a feeling. A sense that this place has absorbed centuries of devotion, of connection between human beings and the rhythms of nature. The stones are more than stone, they are keepers of memory, witnesses to countless nights like this one, where ritual and the turning of the heavens meet in quiet harmony. As you stand there in the mind's eye, the cool night wind brushes past your face, carrying with it the faint echo of the drum, the scent of rosemary, the flicker of ancient firelight. Stonehenge sleeps once more, its secrets intact, but its spirit whispering softly in the darkness. The Druids are gone, but their footsteps remain in the grass, invisible yet eternal. And in the silence that follows, the night feels deeper, older, and more alive than ever before. The night over Salisbury Plain was still, save for the gentle rustle of grass beneath the cool summer breeze. Above, the sky stretched out like a great velvet canopy, sprinkled with 1,000 tiny fires. The moon, pale and calm, cast its silver glow across the standing stones of Stonehenge, illuminating their weathered faces. This was no ordinary night. It was one of those rare evenings when the stars seemed to align perfectly with the ancient pillars, as if whispering secrets older than memory itself. I stood quietly at the edge of the circle, letting my eyes adjust to the soft interplay of light and shadow. The stones, massive and unyielding, seemed to breathe under the moonlight. Their surfaces, rough and pitted from centuries of wind and rain, took on a texture that felt almost alive. Each shadow stretched long and slender across the grass, pointing like great, dark fingers toward places unseen. The air was thick with an energy I could not name, something between awe and reverence. In the distance, the first notes of a faint hum began to rise. It was not from any visible source. Rather, it seemed to come from the ground itself, a low vibration that echoed through my feet. My heart slowed, my breathing matched the rhythm, and I felt as if I were standing at the threshold of two worlds, the one I knew, and another hidden just behind the veil of night. The ancient builders of Stonehenge must have known nights like this. They would have gathered here, wrapped in furs, faces painted with ochre and charcoal, eyes lifted to the heavens. In their world, the stars were not distant balls of fire but living spirits, guardians of the land, guides to the soul's journey. The moonlight, falling in silver beams between the trilithons, would have been a blessing, a sign that the world above was listening. I imagined the Druids moving silently among the stones, their footsteps muffled by the thick summer grass. Some carried torches, their flames dancing in the breeze, casting wavering light across the monoliths. Others held carved staffs, etched with spirals and patterns whose meanings have long since been lost. They would pause at certain points, watching the moon pass through the exact center of two stones, then nod to one another in silent understanding. This was not chance, it was design, carefully planned over years, maybe decades. Above us, the constellations wheeled slowly. Orion's belt hung low to the horizon, and the Pleiades glittered like a cluster of tiny diamonds. I thought of the countless generations who had stood here before, watching these same lights drift across the sky. To them, each star had a name, a story, a purpose. And as I watched, the shadows of the stones seemed to shift with deliberate intent, aligning with certain stars as if to mark the passage of some great, cosmic clock. The hum beneath my feet grew stronger, and I began to wonder if it was simply my imagination, tuned to the quiet mysteries of the night. But then I noticed the grass swaying, though the wind had stilled. It moved in a slow, circular motion, as if drawn into a spiral. In that moment, I could almost see the ancient gatherings, the circle of people swaying in rhythm, chanting in low voices, the sound weaving itself into the very air. The vibrations would resonate through the bones of the stones, through the soil, through the hearts of those present, binding them to the land and to each other. The moon reached its zenith, and a perfect beam of light poured through the gap in the tallest trilithon, striking a flat stone at the center of the circle. For a moment, the entire monument seemed to glow. The shadow of one pillar stretched out to touch another, completing a shape that looked like the outline of a great wheel. My breath caught, this was more than architecture. This was a calendar, a temple, and a bridge between realms. I closed my eyes and listened. The night was alive with whispers, though no one else was there. Perhaps it was the wind through the stones, perhaps the faint rustle of creatures in the grass. But deep down, I felt it was something older, voices carried forward through time, speaking in the language of the stars. The dance of shadows continued, marking the slow passage of night. And as I stood there, bathed in moonlight, I realized that Stonehenge was not simply a monument to the past. It was a living thing, breathing with the rhythms of the earth and sky, still keeping watch over the plain as it had for thousands of years. The shadows lengthened, the hum faded, and the great wheel of stars continued its endless turning. Somewhere in the darkness, a night bird called, and I knew the moment had passed. But its echo lingered in my heart. A reminder that here, under the watchful gaze of stone and starlight, the past is never truly gone. The night stretched endlessly over Salisbury Plain, a quiet shroud of darkness pierced only by the pale silver of the moon. The standing stones of Stonehenge loomed like silent sentinels, their weathered faces catching the light, revealing every groove and nick carved by centuries of wind and rain. In this stillness, one could almost sense the secrets that lay hidden beneath the earth, where the monument's roots reached deep into the soil, anchoring it to the land and to the memories of those who built it. For thousands of years, archaeologists and dreamers alike have wondered what lies beneath the stones. Excavations have revealed burial mounds, cremated remains, and scattered artifacts, pottery, tools, and jewelry, that tell fragments of a story, yet leave so much unanswered. These discoveries hint at the lives of those who lived and died long before our time, their hopes and fears entwined with the stones they raised. Each layer of earth seems to guard its own secret, whispering tales only the patient and observant might hear. Imagine, if you will, the builders themselves, working silently by torchlight. They dug deep holes to secure the massive sarcens, shaped the bluestones, and hauled them from distant hills. Every stone placed was deliberate, a combination of art, science, and spiritual devotion. Perhaps some were erected to honor ancestors, while others marked celestial events, and yet others formed thresholds for rituals known only to a select few. Beneath their feet, they left offerings to the earth, small tokens of gratitude or prayer, carefully buried in pits now hidden by the passage of millennia. The Aubrey holes, a mysterious ring of pits just inside the outer bank, have long fascinated researchers. Some believe they were used for burials, while others suggest they formed part of a larger calendar system. Recent studies indicate that they may have been aligned with lunar cycles, marking the slow dance of the moon across the sky. Imagine ancient eyes peering into the darkness of one of these pits, placing an object within, knowing that this small act was part of a much grander rhythm connecting the earth to the heavens. Even in the quiet of the present night, standing here on the soft grass, it is possible to feel a pulse beneath the ground. Perhaps it is only the imagination, heightened by the hush of the plain, yet it feels as if the earth itself remembers the work and devotion of those long gone. The stones above act as anchors for these memories, their massive presence a testament to human ingenuity, determination, and reverence. In some corners of folklore, Stonehenge is said to be a place where the boundary between the living and the dead is thin. Spirits of ancestors are thought to linger, watching over the land, their presence felt most strongly under the light of the full moon. While we walk among these stones in quiet contemplation, it is not difficult to imagine that beneath us, in the layers of earth and stone, their echoes still resonate. Perhaps this was always the intention of the builders, to create a place where the living could commune with the dead, where the cycles of life and death could be honored and understood in relation to the rhythms of the cosmos. Archaeological digs have uncovered cremated human remains in various pits and mounds surrounding Stonehenge. These findings suggest that the site was used for funerary purposes over several centuries. Each discovery tells of a life once lived, a family once grieving, a community observing the natural and spiritual cycles of existence. And yet, the full story remains tantalizingly out of reach. We may never know the names, the thoughts, or the dreams of those who left their mark here, but the stones themselves hold their memory silently, patiently, through the long passage of time. It is fascinating to consider the scale of this undertaking. The bluestones, brought from hundreds of miles away in the Preseli Hills of Wales, suggest a network of communities working together, guided by shared knowledge, belief, and ritual. Every stone buried, every pit dug, and every offering placed was a small act of faith, an attempt to connect with something larger than oneself. Today, we can only walk quietly, tracing these ancient footsteps in our minds, feeling the weight of centuries beneath our feet. The night deepens, and the wind whispers softly through the stones. Shadows stretch and blend, creating patterns on the earth that shift as the moon arcs across the sky. One can almost imagine a procession moving quietly along these paths, voices low, footsteps measured, torches flickering, the scent of incense and herbs in the air. Beneath them, the earth cradles the memories of countless ceremonies, each layer of soil a record of devotion, grief, celebration, and wonder. Standing here, it becomes clear that Stonehenge is not merely a collection of stones. It is a living archive, a sacred text written in stone and earth, waiting for those who have the patience to read its stories. Every shadow, every whisper of wind, every glint of moonlight across the bluestones is a line of that text, connecting the present with the distant past. As I take a slow, quiet walk around the circle, I feel the enormity of what lies beneath. The stones, rooted deep, reach into the past, into memory and myth. The plain is empty of human noise, yet it is full of echoes, the chants of ceremonies, the laughter of gatherings, the solemn footsteps of mourners. The secrets buried here are patient, unhurried, and eternal, waiting for each generation to pause, to listen, and to honor the continuity of life, death, and the cosmos. And so, under the quiet moon, with the stars as witnesses, I leave the inner mysteries of Stonehenge beneath its steadfast stones, feeling both humbled and comforted. In the silence, the past is alive, the present is still, and the future seems a continuation of a story that began long before our time. The night deepened over Salisbury Plain, wrapping the land in a serene darkness that made the stones appear even more majestic. Each monolith stood as if carved from the very fabric of time, casting long shadows across the dew-kissed grass. There was a sense of stillness here that felt almost sacred, a quiet that seemed to hold centuries within its embrace. In this calm, one could almost feel the pulse of history beneath the earth, as though the stones themselves were breathing, bearing witness to countless nights like this one. Stonehenge is more than a monument, it is a guardian of memory. For thousands of years, it has stood in quiet vigil, watching the changing seasons, the passage of the sun and moon, and the lives of the people who have walked its grounds. Each stone, massive and immovable, has observed generations rise and fall, civilizations bloom and fade, and yet it remains, constant and unwavering. Standing here, one feels a profound connection to all who have come before, as though time itself has slowed, bending gently around this circle of ancient stones. The concept of Stonehenge as an eternal watcher is not just poetic imagination. Archaeologists have long noted the careful placement of the stones to align with celestial events, the summer solstice sunrise, the winter solstice sunset, and even the extremes of the lunar cycle. Each alignment allows the monument to mark the cycles of time, making it not only a place of ritual but also a silent recorder of the cosmos. The stones themselves, therefore, act as sentinels, observing and preserving the dance of the heavens above. In the stillness of the night, one can imagine the ancient people who built this monument, moving carefully among the stones with reverence and purpose. Perhaps they placed offerings of food, flowers, or carved symbols at the bases of the stones, hoping to honor their ancestors or gain favor from the spirits of the sky. They would have looked to the heavens for guidance, noting the positions of stars and planets, aligning their ceremonies with the natural rhythms of the world. And all the while, the stones stood silent, eternal witnesses to these acts of devotion. There is something humbling about realizing that Stonehenge has seen more human history than any living being could hope to witness. It has watched as early farmers tilled the surrounding fields, as Bronze Age peoples traveled across the plain, and as medieval villages rose and fell nearby. Through wars, weather, and the slow march of centuries, the stones have endured, holding the memory of countless generations within their massive forms. Even today, as modern visitors approach, the stones continue their silent vigil. Tourists, scholars, and dreamers alike walk among them, often unaware of the deep connection they are stepping into. The stones do not judge, they do not speak, they simply observe, holding the energy of those who came before. And perhaps even sharing a quiet wisdom with those who pause long enough to notice. There is a sense that time behaves differently here, that the present is but one layer in a complex tapestry stretching back thousands of years. Legends, too, contribute to the sense of eternal watchfulness. Stories of Merlin transporting the stones, of giants dancing in a circle, and of the spirits that linger on moonlit nights all speak to the human need to explain the unexplainable. These tales, passed down through generations, intertwine with the physical presence of the stones, creating a space where myth and reality coexist. In this way, Stonehenge does more than observe, it participates in the living memory of humanity, carrying the weight of imagination alongside the weight of stone. Standing at the center of the monument, one can almost feel the energy of countless rituals and gatherings, each leaving an invisible mark on the land. The hum of the earth beneath, the soft rustle of the grass in the night wind, and the distant cry of an owl all contribute to a feeling that Stonehenge is awake in a quiet, patient way. It listens to the stories of the past, to the whispered hopes of the present, and to the dreams of those yet to come. The moon climbs higher, casting silver light across the stones, highlighting every crack and contour, every weathered edge that tells a story of time's passage. Shadows stretch and shift, creating patterns that seem almost deliberate, as if the stones themselves are performing a silent dance in alignment with the celestial bodies above. The alignment of stone and shadow, light and darkness, past and present, all combine to reinforce the sense that this is a place where time converges, and where the eternal watchers hold their vigil with unwavering patience. It is this timelessness that gives Stonehenge its enduring power. For all its mysteries. How the stones were transported, why they were arranged with such precision, what exact purpose each alignment served, the true wonder lies in its ability to connect us to something far greater than ourselves. In the quiet of the night, with only the stars and moon as companions, one realizes that Stonehenge is more than a monument. It is a bridge across time, a testament to human creativity and reverence, and above all, a silent guardian watching over the land and all who wander within its circle. As the night deepens and the first hints of dawn approach, the stones remain steadfast. They will continue to witness the rising and setting of the sun, the shifting of the seasons, and the passage of generations, long after we are gone. And in their quiet, enduring presence, we find a sense of peace, a reminder that some things endure, that some watchers never tire, and that the rhythm of the earth continues, steady and unbroken, beneath the eternal sky. The night air was cool and still, carrying the faint scent of wildflowers across the Salisbury Plain. The moon hung low and full, spilling pale silver light over the ancient circle of Stonehenge. Every stone, massive and weathered, glowed softly in its glow, casting long, gentle shadows across the grass. In this quiet, timeless moment, the monument seemed alive, not with noise or movement, but with presence, a presence that had watched over this land for thousands of years. Tonight, we linger here one final time, among the stones, feeling their silent wisdom and the stories they hold. As I walked slowly toward the circle, each footstep pressed lightly into the soft earth, I became aware of the centuries that had passed in this very place. Here, people had gathered for countless reasons, ceremonies, celebrations, burials, or simply to witness the wonders of the sky. The stones have seen it all, unchanging yet alive in memory. The silence is profound, yet not empty. It is full of echoes, soft traces of the past lingering in the cool night air. Standing in the center of the circle, I let my gaze wander upward to the heavens. The stars wheeled overhead in a slow, unending dance. Orion's belt, the Pleiades, and the North Star all shone with a clarity that can only be seen far from city lights. The builders of Stonehenge would have seen these same stars, their patterns guiding rituals, planting, and harvests. There is comfort in knowing that the cosmos remains unchanged, continuing its eternal rhythm while human lives pass by like fleeting shadows. The stones themselves tell their own story. Each monolith carries the marks of centuries, cracks etched by frost, scratches from tools long gone, the smooth polish of weathered surfaces touched by wind and rain. They are a testament to human effort, ingenuity, and devotion. The blue stones, transported from distant hills, speak of determination and coordination, of communities working together for a purpose greater than themselves. The larger sarcens, carefully placed and aligned, reveal knowledge of the sun, moon, and stars that is remarkable even by today's standards. In the soft light, I imagined the ceremonies that must have taken place here. Druids moving quietly among the stones, chanting in low voices, families gathering to honor ancestors, fires flickering in the distance while offerings were made to the spirits of the land. Each ritual, each moment of devotion, became part of the living memory held by the stones. Even now, standing in silence, it feels as if those past moments linger, like gentle whispers in the night wind. Stonehenge is also a place of cycles. The sun rises and sets, the moon waxes and wanes, and yet the stones remain steady, enduring the passing of seasons, storms, and centuries. This constancy is comforting. It reminds us that while human lives are fleeting, the rhythms of the earth continue, unbroken and eternal. To stand among these stones is to feel connected to those cycles, to the land, and to the countless people who have walked this plain before us. The heel stone, standing slightly apart from the circle, catches my eye. Its solitary presence is both grounding and mysterious. Moonlight highlights its rough edges, and I imagine it marking the solstice sunrise, guiding ancient observers in their understanding of the world. It is a reminder that even a single stone can hold significance, shaping the rhythm of life and ceremony, guiding attention and intention for generations. As the night deepened, a gentle wind rustled through the grass, carrying with it the faintest echoes of voices, laughter, and song from long ago. It is impossible to know whether these are truly the whispers of the past or simply the imagination stirred by the beauty of the night. Yet in the quiet, it does not matter. The sense of continuity, of connection between the living and the past, is unmistakable. Stonehenge serves as a bridge, linking time, space, and human experience in ways both tangible and mysterious. The circle of stones seems to pulse softly under the moonlight, as if drawing attention to the rhythm of the world. Standing here, one can almost feel the earth itself beneath their feet, alive with memory, energy, and potential. The air hums with quiet life, the chirp of a distant cricket, the flutter of a night bird, the whisper of the wind through the stones. Everything feels in harmony, as though Stonehenge orchestrates a subtle symphony of night sounds, guiding those who listen into a state of calm reflection. Tonight, the stones offer more than history, they offer perspective. They remind us that human curiosity, devotion, and ingenuity are eternal. They encourage patience, reverence, and wonder. In their presence, one can let go of the rush of daily life and sink into a slower, more contemplative rhythm. The moon above, the stars beyond, and the stones surrounding form a perfect harmony, a gentle, timeless lullaby for the soul. As dawn approaches, the first hints of light streak the eastern horizon, softening the darkness. The stones remain in quiet vigil, catching the early glow, casting shadows that stretch across the grass. The night has passed, yet the presence of Stonehenge remains as steadfast as ever. The memories of those who built it, the myths that grew around it, and the cycles of nature it marks continue without interruption. And so, I step back from the circle, taking one last look at the stones bathed in the silver-pink light of early morning. There is a sense of completion, of calm fulfillment. The monument has watched over countless nights and will continue to do so, unhurried and patient. Standing among the eternal watchers of Stonehenge, we are reminded that while life is fleeting, connection, memory, and wonder endure. The stones remain, silent yet alive, a testament to the human spirit and the mysteries of the universe. And in this quiet, the night speaks softly to anyone who pauses to listen, a lullaby of time, stone, and sky, perfect for the heart ready to rest, reflect, and dream.